John Christian of Brieg, the 25th of December 1639, was a Duke of Brzeg, Legnica, Wołów. He was the second but eldest surviving son of Joachim Frederick, Duke of Brzeg, Oława, Legnica, Wołów, by his wife Anna Maria, daughter of Joachim Ernest, Prince of Anhalt. In his baptism, who was realized 2 weeks after his birth, on the 14th of September, he received the names of both uncles, John George of Oława and Christian of Anhalt. Life. Youth. Joachim Frederick died on the 25th of March 1602, leaving his 2 sons as the heirs of his domains. John Christian had 11 years and his younger brother George Rudolph had only 7. The regency of the duchies was taken by the mother, the Dowager Duchess Anna Maria. After Anna Maria's death in 1605, the regency was taken by the paternal aunt of the young dukes, Elizabeth Magdalena of Brieg, and her husband, Charles II of Podbrady, Duke of Legnica. During some time, John Christian lived in Krosno-Odrzański, where he met his first wife, Dorothea Sibyl of Brandenburg. Beginning of rule. In 1609 John Christian attained his majority and assumed the government. On the 7th of October of that year he paid homage to the Emperor Rudolph II in Wrocław. In 1612 his younger brother George Rudolph was formally declared an adult. Then, the brothers decided to make the division of the lands. John Christian retained Brzeg, Oława, Strzelin, Niemczech, Kluczbork and Byczyna, and George Rudolph came into possession of Legnica, Wołów, Zolotoria, Grodzka, Lublin, Przekowice, Winsko, Warsaw, Rykazen and Rudna. Conversion to Calvinism. In 1613 John Christian, then a Lutheran, began to profess openly the Calvinism. With him, his younger brother George Rudolph also changed his religion. The brothers followed the example the second cousin, John Sigismund, Elector of Brandenburg, who shortly before publicly took communion according to the Calvinist rite, after almost 2 years of professed in secret. Thanks to this, they could renew the alliance of the Duchy of Legnica-Brzeg with the House of Hohenzollern. 30 Years' War. In 1617 Ferdinand II of Habsburg was elected King of Bohemia. The new ruler, raised by the Jesuits, began immediately the Counter-Reformation. The Protestants were totally against his election to the Bohemian throne, especially when became clear that Ferdinand II doesn't had any intention to give them tolerance, guaranteed by imperial decree of the late Emperor Rudolph II. The conflict between the Bohemians and Ferdinand II deepened when the new king showed his aspirations for rule in the absolutism. In the civil war started between the Bohemians and the Habsburgs, John Christian stood on the Bohemian side, with the insistence of John George of Brandenburg, Duke of Krnov, his brother George Rudolph and his cousins, the Dukes of Olesnica, Henry Wenceslaus and Carl Frederick of Podbrady, and as General Prefect of Silesia he formed an army who, under the leadership of John George of Krnov, went to Bohemia to help the insurgents. In 1619 the States of Bohemia announced the dethronement of Ferdinand II, and on the 26th of July was elected as new King of Bohemia Frederick V. Elected Palatine, a strong Calvinism. John Christian was a strong supporter of the new king. After the election of Frederick V, he stood at the forefront of the national government of Silesia. On the 27th of February 1620 in Wrocław, the Silesian states paid tribute to Frederick V, during which the formula of the oath was given by the Duke of Brzeg. John Christian also worked in the diplomatic affairs on behalf of King Elector. In Poland, he sought to raise more troops to support the civil war against the Habsburgs. Also, he made contacts with the anti-Habsburger opposition in Hungary, where the king counted with the support of Gabor Bethlen, Prince of Transylvania. In Silesia, John Christian persuaded several nobles to join to the anti-Habsburg side, promising military support. However, the cruelty and dictatorial government of Frederick V, the Silesians began to reject the anti-Habsburg moods, and they fading totally on 8 November 1620, when at the Battle of White Mountain where the Habsburg army severely defeated the Bohemian forces. One day after, Prague was occupied by the Habsburgs, standing all the time faithfully at the side of Frederick V. John Christian urged the Silesian states to adopt a tax on the continuation of the war. However, the following successful of Ferdinand II between the princes who support the electocrat ed all his plans. On the 23rd of December, John Christian was finally defeated and fled to the court of George William, Elector of Brandenburg. The Silesian government entered immediately in negotiations with the winners. On the 28th of February 1621 in Dresden, with the mediation of Elector John George I of Saxony, the agreement was signed. The Silesian states sworn fidelity to the emperor and break completely all relations with his enemies. In addition, Ferdinand II received the sum of 300,000 guilders for participants in the revolt. With the exception of the chief of the Silesian force, Duke John George of Krnov, feared for his life, John Christian went in April 1621 to Frankfurt, in the limits of Brandenburg, and granted to him by George William of Brandenburg, where since the end of February the Duke of Brzeg and his family lived. In the meanwhile, the Emperor Ferdinand II gave the government of Brzeg to John Christian's brother, George Rudolph. After the subsequent mediation of the Elector of Saxony, on 8 December John Christian could return safely to his duchy. In the subsequent years, John Christian wasn't involved in the political game. Nevertheless, he was forced to go into exile again. In 1630, King Gustavus Adolphus of Sweden began his interference in the 30 Years' War. At his insistence, the Elector John George I of Saxony, until then a faithful follower of the Habsburgs, passed to the revolt side. In 1632, the Saxon army entered in the Silesian states, including the Duchy of Brzeg. In the next year, at the northwestern, came the Imperial Army under the command of Hans Ulrich von Schaffgotsch, husband of John Christian's sister, Barbara Agnes. His troops entered in Oława and even took Strzelin, but soon they had to withdraw. Nevertheless, the Imperial Army began to gain advantage, and already in the autumn of 1633, Silesia was free from the anti-Habsburg armies. John Christian was accused of allowing the access of the Saxon armies to Brzeg. The imperial troops invaded his duchy, and the Duke, his family and court were forced to flee. First, he moved to Wołów, and shortly after he moved to Warsaw, where, feared of the troops of Schaffgotsch, and together with his brother, George Rudolph, on the 12th of October 1633, he managed to come to Poland, stopping in Leszno. Exile in Poland. On the 20th of October 1633, John Christian arrived to Torun, where he rented a house. After obtaining the prior consent of the King Vladislav IV Vasa to move to Poland, in 1634 John Christian came to Silesia to talk with some Protestant subjects in the duchies and cities. He had the idea to convince the Silesian states to accept the authority of the King of Poland and repudiate the overlordship of Ferdinand II. However, this idea was never realized. John Christian never returned to his Duchy of Brzeg. In 1635, Ferdinand II entrusted the government of Brzeg to John Christian's oldest son George III as administrator. In January 1635, John Christian returned to Torun. On the 4th of October 1636, and after obtaining the consent of George William of Brandenburg, John Christian assumed the direct administration over Ostronda. where he remained with his family until his death. John Christian died of pneumonia on 25 December 1639 in Ostrada, 6 months after his second wife, Anna Hedwig of Sich. 4 months later, on 19 April 1640, his body was sent to Brzeg, where he arrived on 1 May. However, the formal funeral took place only less than a year after his death, on 12 December 1640. His body was deposited in the Church of St. Hedwig in Brzeg, alongside his first wife, Dorothea Sibyl. Marriages and issue. In Berlin on 12 December 1610, John Christian married firstly with Dorothea Sibyl, daughter of John George, Elector of Brandenburg, by his third wife, Elizabeth of Anhalt, full sister of John Christian's mother Anna Maria. In consequence, both spouses are first cousins. As a dowry, John Christian received 30,000 thalers. On 30 December, the newlyweds came to Legnica, where they lived for a year. On 6 December 1611, the couple moved to Brzeg, where Dorothea Sibyl remained until her death. 13 years later, on 14 May 1625, her body was placed in the Church of St. Hedwig in Brzeg. They had 13 children: George III, Joachim, Henry, Ernest, twin of Henry, Anna Elizabeth, Louis IV, Rudolph, Christian, August, Sibyl Margarita, married on 23 October 1637 to Count Gerhard VII of Donhof. Dorothea, Agnes, twin of Dorothea, Sophia Magdalena, married on 2 December 1642 to Charles Frederick I, Duke of Münsterberg-Oels, Duke of Lebnica. In Brzeg on 13 September 1626, John Christian married secondly with Anna Hedwig, daughter of the Marshal Frederick of Sich. The young bride was a relative of John VI of Sich, who during 1600 to 1608 held the dignity of Bishop of Wrocław and Imperial Governor of Silesia. However, the union was morganatic under the standards of the House of Pist, and for this the marriage was temporarily a secret. A successful arrangement on 24 June 1626 secured financially the eventual offspring of the union, but they were excluded from the succession of the Duchy of Legnica-Brzeg. 18 months later, on 7 December 1627, Emperor Ferdinand II gave an imperial diploma, raised Anna Hedwig to the rank of Baroness, and 2 months later, on the 18th of February 1628, by a similar act in Regensburg, the emperor issued for the eldest son of John Christian and Anna Hedwig, August, the title of Baron of Legnica, and the same title was secured for the future children of the couple. Anna Hedwig died in Ostrada 6 months before her husband, aged 28. She was buried there on 5 October. They had 7 children. Baron August of Legnica, created Count in 1664. Baroness Dorothea Sibyl of Legnica. A son, Baron Ernest of Legnica. Baron Sigismund of Legnica, married on 1 October 1659 to Baroness Eva Eleonore of Bibern-Modlau. The union was childless. Baroness Johanna Elizabeth of Legnica, married on 3 November 1651 to Baron Zdenko Hauerberke von Dub und Lippe. Baroness Anna Christina of Legnica,